Ask to call the roll.
Belsley. Here. Blunier. Hare.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Parrott.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no public hearing tonight. Our special reports. Any comments from the public? If not, tonight's consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting February 4th, 2018, and the approval of the bills. So I could have a motion.
Second.
Any comments? Call the roll.
Hare.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Village President, I have nothing tonight. Clerk?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Village Administrator?
I have one item tonight, Your Honor. I have Resolution 17-19, which is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Wolf Tesser and Company.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? You'd like to explain it?
This is our auditing firm. This will be the second 3-year contract with them. Total fees are $58,500. Previous contract was a total of $55,000, so it's like a 6.4% increase. But I do want to point out, in our last year with our prior auditor, we had spent more than the total of these 3 years in 1 year with our prior auditor. So they're still giving us a great deal.
Correct. And I want to give the due to Julie. She's the person that organized this, and we're getting 3 years done for one.
And the staff has greatly contributed to help with that, to be able to keep that rate
Right.
that way. So we have some incredible people in the office doing a lot of work there to keep those rates down.
Right.
Thank you, Sam. Any other comments? If not, call the roll.
Lehman.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yes.
Belsley.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Chief of Police,
I have nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Corporation Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Brief statement that I want to make on behalf of the village in regards to the article that was published in the Journal-Star today. The Village of Morton takes seriously any complaints or allegations that the village has misspent public funds. A recent Journal-Star article brought attention to complaints brought before this board previously regarding the purchase of 225 East Jefferson. The village has thorough internal review procedures in place to ensure that any expenditure of public funds is made in full compliance with all legal requirements. The village disputes any contention that prior expenditures from its tourism fund or from any other village funds have been made unlawfully or for any purpose other than serving the best interest of the residents and businesses of the Village of Morton.
Thank you. Director, Fire and Emergencies?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Director of Public Works?
I have several items tonight, Your Honor, and I'm going to move item A down to the end. That's the presentation that we will give tonight.
Okay.
But item B in front of you is the permission to request bids for 2019 water distribution materials.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Next is item C. I'd like to waive formal bidding and ask for acceptance of proposal from Sam Lehman Chrysler Jeep Dodge here in Morton for a 2019 Dodge Ram 1500 quad cab 4-wheel drive for the wastewater department in the amount of $26,497.
Could I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any comments?
I will abstain from this vote for my
Okay.
ties to business.
I would be glad to add just real quick, we waived formal bidding, but we did solicit proposals from the 4 local dealers and Sam Lehman was the lowest. But this was a claim on a truck, so I had communicated with all of you. I think I've talked with most of you. So
Right, and you
I
have
just wanna
given
make
us
sure
all-
you guys are all aware. That's
Yeah.
the only reason for the waive formal bidding, is we really wanted to expedite that process. So the mechanic and I worked with all the dealers in town, the 4, so we did get 4 good proposals, and we do appreciate that they all gave us proposals, and then we just went with the lowest responsible one.
All 4 did turn in a bid.
They all
so.
4 did.
All right, call the roll, please.
Parrot. Yes. Belsley.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Lehman is abstaining. Newman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
All right, my next item, give me 1 second here while I get a slideshow up. Podium real quick.
There you go, young man.
All right, we'll try to keep this as brief as we can. So this is a 10,000-foot view of a report that we've been working on. So this is available for all of you. But first, for the public, my name's Craig Loudermilk. I'm the Director of Public Works here at the Village of Morton, and appreciate this opportunity to present our plan for our wastewater facilities for the next 20 years. With me tonight is Tim Braun with McMahon Group. He's been working for the village since 2009, about that time, so prior to me, but has done a lot of work for us. And then also I have Superintendent of the Wastewater Department, Todd Franti. And then also I have 2 employees here. Kevin Wilson is the foreman of wastewater, and then Kellen Kellen Walker is an employee in the wastewater. So I appreciate you guys coming too.
Not a Hall of Fame tight end?
Yeah, that was what was on my mind. Sorry. I saw him walk in. I'm like, I gotta recognize these guys. Which this is a good thing when guys show up and are really interested in what we're doing. So with that, we've been working since late 2017. We had planned back then to bring McMahon on to do some planning. We still have to do a little more planning on the water treatment side, and that'll be coming here in the next couple months. But with that, like I said, we're trying to condense this down to 15 to 20 minutes, and we'd be glad to answer any questions after. We spent some time today with trustees to dive in a little bit deeper into this and be able to answer any questions. So I appreciate the trustees that were there today to go through that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim and let him start the presentation.
Thanks a lot, Craig. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight as well. The real purpose of this thing was to get ourselves to a position so that we knew what our future obligations would be in dealing with wastewater treatment for the next 20 years, taking into account population growth, changing regulations, aging equipment and facilities. And so we took a really comprehensive look at both of the wastewater treatment facilities. And again, Craig said this is what we're given tonight is the 10-minute version of this, or the 15-minute version, but there's a lot of detail in here for anybody who is interested and wishes to go into more detail on it. So why are we doing this? Well, the population changes, the EPA changes regulations, and we have facilities that are almost, the youngest ones are almost 20 years old. So it's really time to take a hard look at this and do some planning. Plant number 2, the main part of that treatment process was constructed in 1975. We've done several projects on it since, but that backbone of the system is getting weak. Plant number 3, the main system was constructed in 2001. I put the populations up for when these systems were actually constructed to give you an idea of what they were planned for as opposed to what we're planning for now. Planning period will be for the next 20 years. So our plan now is from 2019 to 2039. We've projected population, 2039 population of 18,435. That's kind of a compromise between what the State Department of Administration said the population would be and what the County Planning Department said the population would be. And they were both, one was much higher than that, one was much lower. And we looked at the actual trend of growth in the village, and it seemed to be right between the two, so we chose that as our population projection because it seemed more consistent with what was going on and kind of followed the historical trend. EPA regulations, there's a new emphasis on nutrient removal, nitrogen, phosphorus. There will be some changes in disinfection. We're seeing some states banning chemical disinfection using chlorine. I expect that that's coming our way. And sludge disposal regulations have gotten more difficult, and you have a local issue that's caused a problem with that too that we'll discuss here in just a couple minutes. So here's plant number 2. Again, this is your large plant. This is the 2 million gallon per day plant. This is out 4th on the north side of town, or on the south side of town, I'm sorry. Again, the main plant was built in 1981. We've done a number of projects over the years. My first project actually for the Village of Morton was the 2007 project when we rebuilt that plant to buy 10 years. And it's worked. We got 10 years out of it. We got a couple more, and it's still working very well actually, but it has some problems. And then last year, we actually constructed the secondary effluent and excess disinfection. That was again because of EPA regulations. We had never had to disinfect the excess flow before. This is an aerial view of the plant. I don't know how many of you have actually been out there. But I just wanted you to get an idea of what it looks like anyway. It's a fairly significant facility. So what are we planning to do? Based on the analysis of what we looked at and what we see the regulations being, along with some kind of operator safety and operation and maintenance problems, we've kind of developed a plan with Todd and Craig going through things that we think are the important things to deal with at the plant. Right when the wastewater comes into the plant, there's a screening and a grit removal process and main pumping. The design of those is not very conducive to safe cleaning of the wet well, safe removal of the pumps. Screening is after pumping, which you end up with a lot of stuff plugging pumps up and a lot of extra maintenance that's not required. We're going to relocate the screening. We're going to relocate the pumps outside the building so there's easier access for the guys. They can clean things more easily. Grit removal is really not functioning right now. That you should be getting a dumpster of grit a week, and you might get a 5-gallon pail, maybe. So all of that grit is moving downstream into the other processes and filling up tanks and causing other maintenance issues. So that needs to be addressed as well. Now, because of the growth projected in the 20-year time period, we also had to look at the aeration tanks and the secondary clarifiers. The tanks are not large enough to meet current design code, and they are very shallow, and there's no provision for nutrient removal. As I said earlier, nitrogen and phosphorus are going to be coming into the new regulations, and there are really no provisions for that in this plant. Secondary clarifiers also don't meet current design code. They're not deep enough, and the surface area is not large enough. So those will have to be replaced at some point in time. We'll also have to, because we're redoing those, add return and waste sludge pumping station and controls. Tertiary filtration. The existing tertiary filters have been rehabilitated before. They were rehabilitated in the 1975 project. And they are past their useful life. Todd and the guys do a great job keeping those things running, but it is very labor intensive, and they really are undersized according to current design code for even current flows, let alone the increased flows that we're going to see in the future. So in addition, the building they're housed in is having some structural issues. So it's something that actually needs to be replaced, building and filters both. Solids handling, we did a digestion project out there years ago, and everything was sized appropriately. So you have plenty of digestion. The problem we have with sludge now is the arsenic, which is removed from the drinking water, ends up in the wastewater sludge, and the concentrations are high enough now that we're no longer able to apply that sludge to agricultural land. That means that we have to dewater it and landfill it. Now, it's not hazardous, it's been tested, so the landfills will accept it, but we just have to use a different disposal option and a different method for dealing with it. And the plant was not designed with that in mind, so those are things that we have to add. So here's a quick overview of Plant 2 in the future. You've got that in the handout in front of you. I can't see it from across the room, so it may not be large enough, even though we thought it was when we put it on the screen. But it has the locations of the new facilities and the things that we're going to change, shown in red boxes on there, so that you can look at them later if you see. The largest project is going to be, I don't know if it does either. Oh, it does. Okay.
There you go.
All right, perfect. Here we go. I'm going to point at the front screen. Down here on the south end of the plant would be the headworks and the pumping station work.
Could you point out real quick where the streets are? So Broadway's on the south.
Yeah, this is 4th,
Yep.
this is Broadway. So we're right at the corner of 4th and Broadway. Pumping and headworks work will go on right in this area. This will be the new main heart of the plant. New clarifiers, new aeration tanks, an anoxic zone for nutrient removal, new return sludge and waste sludge pumping. This will be the new solids handling area immediately to the north of the digesters. This building is the new digester building. And then finally, the tertiary filters will be right in this location. We're very fortunate to have a lot of room to work with out there. And frankly, when the digester project is complete, this large lagoon here in the middle of the plant will no longer be necessary, and that will be additional space that we can recover should we need it for something else in the future. So we're in very good shape space-wise. Many plants are not, but we're very fortunate to be able to fit everything where we need it and still preserve a lot of the room up here to the north for other uses of the village. Plant number 3. This is the smaller of the two plants, and this is a plant that is going to be under 1 million gallons per day, even after the upgrade. That's important because that keeps it a minor plant in the Illinois EPA regulatory framework. So we pay less for our permitting every year, and the EPA tends to be, they concentrate on the larger plants because that's where the larger issues are. So it's good that it turned out, even with the future growth, that it's less than 1 MGD. Again, here's a picture of Plant 3. This is down on Veterans Road, all the way on the north side of town. It's all the way at the bottom of the hill, which is fortunate in one way because we don't have any pump stations that come to this plant. Everything runs through here by gravity. And when gravity fails, we have a lot of other problems. When pump stations fail all the time, but when gravity fails, we got a problem. So the influence screening at Plant 3, there's an existing building and a screen, both of which are at the end of their useful life. As a matter of fact, Todd has to spend some money to Band-Aid that screen to get it through this year. That needs to be replaced. The building is also severely deteriorated and needs to be a masonry building to withstand the humidity, and the hydrogen sulfide gas tends to eat everything. So you need a solid structure to house that building. You also need to have continuous gas monitoring equipment in there so that when the employees enter the building, they know whether it's safe to do so or not, and ventilation. So that's something that has to be done when that plant is upgraded. The anoxic tank and the aeration are both sized properly. They were sized properly in the last upgrade, and we don't need to add any tankage space. We are going to need to reconfigure some things for nutrient removal, do a little bit of repiping. We don't have nutrient removal in that plant now, but we will in the future. Those regulations inexorably make their way down to the smaller plants. So as long as we're working on it, we should plan for it now. It's always cheaper to do it right the first time. So we're planning to comply with that condition when it comes. The current aeration system is working fine. It's been working fine since it was installed in 2001, but it operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And bearings and motors and belts and couplings and all of those things wear, no matter how well Todd and his guys take care of it, changing oil and greasing, and eventually those things wear out, and there will be some maintenance required at some point in time. The other thing is, right now it's not particularly well suited for nutrient removal, although it can be retrofitted for that, and it's less energy efficient than it could be. Right now you're running about 120 horsepower there. We got some proposals for replacement equipment that would run at 58 horsepower for the same treatment load. So there is some energy efficiency to be gained, and we could potentially increase the nutrient removal with an aeration system retrofit. But again, it's not a critical item. It's just something to keep in mind for future. Secondary clarifiers, again, sized properly, meet current design code. The airlift pumping has had failures, several failures in the last few years, piping failures. It's a very inefficient system, very high energy consumption, and we need to repipe for nutrient removal anyway. So this is a project that needs to get done before we have a nutrient limit, but you know, at some point in time when it makes sense to have a project that's a little larger scale, this would be something to tie into one of those projects. Disinfection, this is the one area at this plant where you don't meet current design code, and obviously with the increase in population you won't meet future design code either. Now, you are meeting your permit limits, so the EPA is not going to say anything about it because you've been in compliance with your permit. But if we sent in a tank of the size and capacity of this tank now, they would reject it and tell us we had to build a bigger tank. So again, this is one of the things that we can deal with as we need to. It would be nice to get away from using chemicals altogether for disinfection there. So we propose that you'd use UV light, and then you won't have any chemicals on site. The guys won't have to handle any chemicals. And in terms of operation cost, it's very, very similar to a chemical disinfection system. Instead of paying for chemicals, you're paying for electricity. So solids handling, again, digestion's adequate. When the digester projects were done, they were sized properly. The problem we have, again, is availability of agricultural land for land application. So again, adding dewatering and storage and disposing as in a landfill, we think is probably the right way to go, especially given the fact that we're going to want to do that at Plant 2 because of the arsenic anyway. Here's the Plant 3 layout again, with the modifications shown. This is the box where the influence screen and building need to be replaced. This area in between the clarifiers is where the return sludge pumping and needs to be done. This would be the solids handling building with a press and a little storage building. Ultraviolet disinfection is down here, the final thing prior to discharge from the plant. And then the aeration system retrofit would be to replace the aeration equipment that's in these existing oxidation ditches. Now we're down to the part that makes everybody's hair curl a little bit. So we've put together construction cost estimates for these.
Is that all?
We've taken the We've done concrete takeoffs, we've done some piping, we've gotten real numbers from equipment suppliers. So as you can see, the obligation is pretty substantial for, your 20-year planning period. Some of these are higher priority than others, and we've got a little priority list coming up. But as you can see, this one is about $17.5 million. Here's plant number 3. This one's a little easier to take. Again, some of these are more critical than others. Solids handling for both of these plants are probably at the top of the list right now just because of your disposal issues. And then the rest of these can be dealt with as projects make sense. And we're trying to work on a timeline and a project. Todd has prioritized some of the projects, so we'll be putting together a timeline with kind of budgeting over a period of years that we'll provide to Craig and he can provide to you guys. So this is this is the initial project priority list. Solids dewatering and storage is kind of at the top of the list. Your annual costs for managing that material now have gone up dramatically from probably an average of $60,000 a year to last year about $225,000 due to the arsenic, and you're contracting with Stewart Spreading to dewater that material and haul it to the landfill. So this is a project that has a significant change in your operation and maintenance budget that probably comes to the top of the list. The next project that we kind of had in the priority list is the kind of the backbone of the system. It's the activated sludge secondary clarifiers WAS system. This will be a fairly significant project, and so some real planning has to happen to make sure that that the finances are ready for that, and it may be a project that it would be worthwhile looking into a IEPA revolving loan fund loan or something. So again, that's something that you guys will have to think about when you're working on the finances for this, but that will be a significant project, and it really can't be split up. That's the big problem with this one, is you can't do one piece of it one year and one piece of it the next year. It has to be done kind of as a whole. Tertiary filtration, again, lower priority project that can be done a few years afterwards. We expect that we will have a phosphorus limit that will require filtration probably in the 2025 permit. So this project will probably need to be completed in order to maintain compliance with that 2025 permit, or we will get a compliance schedule in the 2025 permit to allow us to construct this after that permit's issued. And then the final project would be the headworks and the influent pumping. Oh, wrong button. Plant number 3, again, solids dewatering and storage is kind of at the top of the list because of the operations costs that you're facing on that right now. UV disinfection would be the next project because that is the one area where you do have a compliance issue. And then the bar screen and wash press would be the third priority, and the aeration system retrofit, that may be 10 years down the road. Because it's operating just fine right now, but it's just something to consider. It won't last another 20 years. I know that for sure. So, questions?
So, when you would go through with a project, is there disruption to the current service, or is it with the planning and, how does that?
Especially the big ones, we'd be able to.
Yeah.
The way that we have this laid out, how you mentioned we have a lot of room to grow out there, we'd be able to maintain our current operation while it was being built.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, they've done it, and I remember previously that you guys spent a lot of time on maintenance and reconfiguring and engineering on your own to keep the current machines going and
Yes.
up to, I
Yeah.
mean, we've been putting it off for a long time. I know that
Yeah.
that was one of the biggest concerns, that we knew this day was coming.
Yeah.
So, and then and I know I wasn't there this morning, from a budgetary perspective, we are able to save a little bit and have some build up to offset some of that, right? So over time, it's not like we have to take all of that at once to do it, so, right, which is
Yeah,
good.
and I think, we spent the time on this, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Obviously, we're working, Julie's spent some time really helping, she's fantastic with spreadsheets and graphs and all that, so we're working on that stuff to be able to present stuff down the line. This right here today and what we're doing tonight was really to make sure, this is a typical process, to make sure we don't miss those targets, financial targets, EPA targets, those sort of things. But financially, I mean, I don't think what you see up here is out of the ordinary.
Right.
I think Morton sits in a very good spot. I'm very fortunate personally to take over what I took over as we go forward. Right now, currently in the bank, this is operation and, capital expenditures is in that 8-9 million range right now. So obviously, we need to look at that. These are, and we didn't talk about water tonight either, water treatment. We're obviously working towards projects there. But then also keep in mind the water fund for the public too consists of the wastewater, water treatment, and water distribution too. So this is everything. So we're looking at everything all encompassing.
But part of the reason I bring it up is because we have been prepping for it. We didn't know exactly what it was. This gives us a better handle on good news, bad news. You have something to work towards, and we can, utilize some other tools that might actually make it a little bit easier from a standpoint, because obviously pressure on the general fund, we want to try to limit that as much as possible, because there are there's other infrastructure projects that we've got to focus on too.
Yeah.
But
No, obviously, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I mean, we're
Right.
going to be looking at rate increases.
Yeah.
Our last rate increase was 2014. Obviously, we want it to be appropriate, which is why we did this.
Yeah.
We didn't raise rates before without having a plan. So some of these numbers you see is what we're going to be working on laying out to be able to determine how we're going to fund this. And we had some good discussions today. Trustee Newman obviously has been through this throughout his career, so we appreciated his time today and his input into that, and going forward, likewise the other trustees. So that's the next step after this, and then also a little more on the water treatment too. Like I said, we've got a significant expenditure this summer on the water treatment side that we'll be speaking about here soon. That's going to cut into some of that 8 to 9 million that I'm talking about. So,
And in today's discussions, for all the trustees, including Mr. Hare, that paperwork you see, that book there, if I'm correct, Tim has done all the paperwork, so if we decide to go out for the government loans, low-interest loans, the paperwork is done for that, so we don't have to redesign that. So they're getting it all organized, so as we go down this process, we might want to borrow the money at a cheap interest rate and do it sooner than later, so we don't have the added construction costs. So we've had several ideas, so all that's going to come to the board with rate increases and that, but there's no justification for rate increases till we know what we're faced here.
and that revolving loan program, which I don't have a lot of experience with, but there's a lot of information out there on the internet. And we looked at it even today, and it's, they spend upwards of, or basically appropriate $450 million throughout the state. So this is how a lot of communities do that. We are still in a position, though, even if we had to go that route, to be able to pay for it in the time frame we're talking about, which is, makes you feel good that you can still do that, not be in a pinch.
We're right in the middle of one with the city of Sycamore, Illinois, that's using the revolving loan program. And there's a bunch of paperwork and stuff at the beginning, but the program is good because the rate is very favorable. It's under 2% now. It has been about 2.5, but it's actually under 2% right now.
Yeah, I think it 1.84% is what that is.
But when we
today.
look at safety for our employees, we look at maintenance and different things, we might want to do some part of it sooner than later.
So we still have a lot of work to do to summarize that, to get all of you information for that discussion.
I think this whole planning process is great, that we can look out 20 years so that we don't get to something where, okay, shoot, we have to do something this year. We can foresee that out, we can plan for it, we can budget for it, and we can, if we need to increase rates, we can look at the loans, we can look at increasing rates, but we don't have to do your rate's gonna double this year. It may go up slightly, but it's not to the point where it's gonna, affect people detrimentally, affect people.
Yeah. And I didn't want to get into a lot of rates, but we do have a lot of information that we're working on surrounding communities. We're below average at this point. I'm not saying that's a reason why you raise rates, but I will say in the surrounding communities, we have room to catch up with them, which I hope to never catch up. We'll always be chasing them. But I even had the comment the other day from a public works director near to us. He's like, "Do you realize you're way below the average?" So I think we're in a good place going forward. Obviously, we don't want to raise rates unless we have to, but I think we're at a place where we're going to have to look at that.
And even if you get a loan, you're going to have to raise the rates to pay the loan back,
Right.
despite how favorable
Right,
the interest
right.
rate is. Yeah.
But you might want to go ahead and do that so you don't
Right.
have the added construction costs.
Yes.
And when you do one part, you may want to just do it. If
Yeah.
it's feasible,
Yep. Absolutely.
rates pay the loan off.
That's what Sycamore decided to do. They
Right.
just did everything in one project because they said, we're going to get it done. We can get the money cheap right now. We're going to go ahead and get it done, and we won't worry about it for 20 years.
But I think you've divided each plant up into 3 or 4 areas,
Right.
so.
Because that's normally the way the village does things. You guys you don't operate the way many communities do. You actually plan ahead and put money aside, and when the project's ready to do, you have the money to pay for it. So
Right.
normally, that's the way you do your projects, and that's the way I've done projects here for years, so.
Well, thanks for your time.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for all
Thank
your
you.
work.
Thanks
guys.
very much.
We got another question here.
Just-
Trustee
I just
Bilsey.
thought, I appreciate the information, and even though the focus and the discussion tonight was on the treatment facilities themselves, it might be worth mentioning the work and the planning that's been done over the years with our collection system. That's, in my opinion, I think has taken a big portion of the burden off of our plants, and that's a credit to the staff, but it's given us more life of our treatment plants, and that's everything from recent upgrades to the lift station on Jackson Street to the lining of our sewers, the separation of combined sewers, the sump pump program years back that took a lot of the burden of fresh water going through our treatment plants. But I think all those things combined over the years really, we're fortunate for that, for those efforts. And I guess I thought it might be worth mentioning, we're talking about the treatment plants, but our collection system, what's the condition we're in there?
That came up in today's meeting, and Craig answered that. Thank goodness we have all that money taken care of and paid for, so.
Yeah, now I've only been here 7.5 years, so I'm not going to pat myself too much on the back, but what's been done on the collection system, on the sanitary, and the distribution system really is impressive. It's a small staff. On the water side, I don't want to leave them out. You guys have supported, past boards have supported us. The preventative maintenance, we're putting in a lot of water main every year, so we have an active replacement plan. A lot of communities don't do that. We don't have the 100-year-old water main here. And then on the sanitary, on that collection system, we're replacing 1 or 2 streets every year that usually are dictated. We determine those streets based on the condition of the sanitary sewer. That's been going on for a long time, several decades. We've been lining sewers for, I think, almost 25 years now. So we're within 5 years even on those projects to where I can say that almost all our sanitary sewers are either lined or new in the last 20 or so years. So I think that's impressive. Obviously, the staff gets a lot of stuff done, so I appreciate all of your support on the equipment. I think we have the best equipment. There's some things on the upcoming budget that we'd also like to get. So giving these guys the tools, the new Vector truck, which was very expensive, to get those tools so that we can maintain, televise storm sewer. We've been televising storm sewer for how long? Other communities are trying to start televising sewers. So we're ahead on stormwater too. So with that, I won't carry on anymore, but that's pretty impressive what we get done out in the collection and distribution system.
I'd just like to make one comment too to kind of augment what Craig just said. We do these reports for a lot of different communities, and most of them we have a long chapter on the deficiencies of the sanitary collection system and what the major problems are and how much it's going to cost to fix them. And for your report, all we did was include a chapter saying, this is their program and they've been doing this for 20 years and the collection system's in great shape. That's about all we had to say. So there's a significant difference between what you guys do and what most people do.
And our staff, you know, Kevin and Kellen that are here tonight, I mean, they're operators and working to be operators, but these guys are out in the collection system. So a lot of communities too, they're just, you know, not just, but they're operators, water or wastewater. These guys are managing all that. So they're out, we're televising. I mean, how often are we televising daily? I mean, we're doing a quarter to a sixth of the town per year, and it's the same guys that are operating, which I still think is a small staff, even if you're just at the plants. So we get a lot done with you know, not a lot of people, so.
Thank you. And that is a lot of good equipment, technology, and good employees.
Yeah, and we definitely appreciate all that. So every time we come forward asking for approval, I promise you, we don't take that for granted. We appreciate it. It's so nice to work with nice new equipment. We try to carry as long as we can, but working with nice new equipment, the things that we can do, we're very fortunate, so we appreciate that.
And thanks, Trustee Belsley, for bringing that up, because the citizens need to know that's been paid for and it's working fine, so thank you.
And the last thing I would like to extend out there to all of you and even the public, we do tours. Unfortunately, it's not unfortunately, but it's sixth graders. No adults want to come tour, but we'd extend that. I've extended that to people. These guys will make themselves available. I will too. We really enjoy the sixth graders. We did a big one this year with 3 classes, Mrs. Knapp's class at Lincoln School, which she was a former classmate, but I think we enjoyed it more than the students. So with that, you guys, anyone, we love to show off. You know, WMBD was here tonight. They're not sticking around to see the wastewater stuff, so people aren't interested in this. So our doors are open. Seriously, call us. We love to show off what we've got. So when we present this, I know it's a high level, but if anyone wants to come out and see us, call us, and we're available to tour the plants.
And part of that idea is to get the young people of Morton involved in looking at these jobs in the future. Part of that, we're going to be working on that with the schools to get people involved in these jobs, Morton residents.
And that's a good plug. I hate to keep going here, but water operators, sign up. We're always pushing our kids to get bachelors and all those things, but there is a need for water operators.
Because grandpas like me like having their grandkids in town.
Yeah.
So.
So there's some good jobs out there.
Well, the other part is it's grandpas like me that have our licenses, and there aren't many young guys that do.
That's right.
You know, I'm 65 and I got my license, but you know, how much longer am I going to do it?
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Planning and zoning.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you, Raj. Village trustees, any of you have anything? If not, I'd ask for, my pen quit. It was a freebie. If not, I'd ask to make a motion to close.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.